Hello, and welcome to another episode of Subsistence in Suburbia. It's Mother's Day, and I thought that I was going to be doing a video today of planting some of the items in my garden, but unfortunately we had a frost last night, and they are projecting another frost tomorrow night here in Nebraska, and so I am going to postpone planting a little bit, and I apologize ahead of time for the wired headphones. It's quite windy today. I thought instead of the planting video, what I would do today is give you a tour of the property, kind of show you a little bit about what I have going on here as far as the garden itself, my little fruit orchard, the edges of the property, which I'll get into in a little bit more detail here shortly with wildflowers and native grasses, as well as some of the additional trees and things that I've done. You can probably see in the background my dog Patsy running around in the yard down there. One of the benefits of living on a acreage is the fact that she has plenty of room to run around. She's a German short-haired pointer, and they have a ton of energy. So I think what we'll do then is we're going to start. I'm up in the corner of my property. I'm just going to give you a sort of a tour of the perimeter and point out things here and there. Hopefully it's of interest to you guys to kind of maybe get some ideas for some of you, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera around here and show you guys the property. All right, so we're up in the corner of my property. The neighborhood that we live in was built on an old farm that was terraced and somewhat hilly. So our lot actually has parts of two different terraces as the back border of the property. So what I'm going to do here is kind of show you some things that I have done since I moved in. One of them you'll notice is a lot of this looks like it's just bare dirt with some stuff coming up. I've been basically working for the last 3 years to establish native grass and wildflowers on the property, and it has been an ordeal. I actually recently just hired a gentleman to come out and drill seed everything to make a better attempt to get everything to actually take, for lack of a better term, and get established. But there are some things that I am still working on. So you'll see a few little baby trees here. I've planted about 18 trees since we moved in here 3 years ago. These 3 trees are very special. We have 2 dogwoods and 1 crabapple. So this is the little crabapple tree. This is planted with the ashes of Katie's cat, Sophie. Sophie passed away about 3 years ago in July, and she was 19 years old, so we planted some ashes with this Robinson's crabapple, which has pink blooms in the springtime. This is a flowering dogwood tree that is planted with the ashes of my dog Greta, who passed away several years ago. And then this new one is planted with the ashes of my dog Stella. And Stella, I had her for 13 years. She passed away the Friday before Christmas. She had been dealing with some injuries. She tore her ACL 3 years ago and never was quite the same, and it finally got the best of her. So I had to make a very difficult decision on the Friday before Christmas. So this is another little dogwood tree that I planted with her ashes. You can kind of see some of the little wildflowers that are already coming up. These little orange ones are some of my favorites. And you also see some bunches of grass that have come up. I am dealing with some wild mustard that I'm going to have to come up and pull here. These are no good. If anybody has any of these on their property, you want to pull those up, they will go haywire on you. This tree that's just budding out is a little red oak tree that I planted about 2 years ago. I got it as a very small sapling on sale. I believe I bought it at Walmart, of all places, for about $30. So I actually planted that, and it is just starting to bud out right now. So coming up to the corner here, this is going to look a lot different right in this area hopefully this summer. I actually put down along the top edges quite a bit of sunflower seeds. So sunflowers, obviously, birds love it, and in planting sunflowers on your acreage property, it turns into natural bird feeders in the wintertime. Not to mention they're pretty to look at during the summer months. A couple other little wildflowers you'll see here. These little blue ones are pretty. And these are always the first ones. I have to look up, I'll have to look and see which variety this is, but they are always the first ones that come up, the little blue and orange wildflowers. We're pretty elevated up here. You can kind of see the yard. I planted all that from seed. I didn't do sod when we built. Sod was incredibly expensive, and planting a yard from seed is almost always going to give you a better result if you can get it to get established, which we did. I had a friend that owns a lawn service come out and help me get that lawn established, and it's turned out really, really well. So one of the projects I hope to do in the future is to build some stairs to get up on this berm that leads to the first terrace, which is where my little fruit orchard is. But if you can see, what I've done in the meantime is I have basically cut into the bank, into the dirt, some little footholds so that I can walk my way up to check on my fruit trees. And you can kind of see here my little fruit orchard up here on the terrace. I have 13 fruit trees up here. We'll start here down at the far end, and I'll give you an idea of what each of these are. I did them in alphabetical order to help myself remember. So I have, this is an apple, and this is a red Rome Beauty. So it's about 6.5, 7 feet tall now. The next is a Honeycrisp apple. And the next is a tree that I hope makes it. This is an apricot tree that is a replacement for one that died. And it went through a little bit of shock. The company that I bought it from sent it right when we were dealing with some hard freezes. I had to keep it in the garage for several nights, and it did not take well to that. So I transplanted it anyway. We'll see here by the end of the month whether this little guy makes it. If not, it's got a guarantee, and I'll be planting yet another apricot tree. This is a different apricot. So when you plant fruit trees, it's always best to plant at least 2 of each variety for pollination purposes. This is a different variety of apricot, which is doing really well. Then I have 2 cherry trees. So one of these is a black cherry, which is a sweet cherry for eating. And then this is a Montmorency cherry for pies. Coming over a little bit, I have 2 peach trees. I tend to plant freestone fruit. It's much easier to work with. This is a contender peach, which tends to do fairly well in Nebraska. This is a brand new peach tree that replaced one that died. You're always going to have some loss with trees. Out of 13 original trees, 2 of them didn't make it, which to me wasn't the end of the world. So this is a new one called an Alberta peach tree. Then I have 2 pears. One is a Bartlett, and the other one, actually this is the Bartlett, and this one is the Star King Delicious pear. And last but not least of my fruit trees is an Italian plum. So you can kind of see here, spatial relation wise, this terrace is actually pretty sizable. The width of my property is about 330 feet, and this runs the full length of it. So I actually have quite a bit of space up here. I could plant another dozen fruit trees if I wanted to. One of the interesting things is that there is a lot of wild plums that are already on the property. And all of these that are leafing out right in front of you, those are all wild plum trees that were already here. Then I have an aronia berry volunteer that was on the property. And aronia berries are actually edible. Then up here, I have another portion of a terrace. And I don't know if you can see this, but this dirt trail is very well used. The deer love to come up here. So then I have another little portion of a terrace that has some volunteer cedars that I'm going to take out this year. I really don't want them to really get established here. And eventually I might plant some Christmas trees and grow my own Christmas trees up here. There are some volunteer trees that I might be taking out here. We have quite a few locusts that have volunteered. But either way, this gives you an idea of the backside of my property of the terrace. This was here, this old picnic table. I might actually refinish that this year. That might be another project. We'll see how much time I have. Coming down, we're now on the north side of the property, and you can see my wood pile that's going to get moved this year, and then the top edge that's also getting planted in native grass and wildflowers. But amazingly enough, that tall, dark stalk you see is a volunteer asparagus that a bird probably transplanted up here accidentally. But as asparagus goes, I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to see what happens. Might have a little wild patch of asparagus come up. As we get down towards the road, you're going to see our ditch, which has been a little bit of an issue over the last couple years. We had terrible flooding last year in March here in eastern Nebraska, actually the eastern 2/3 of the state. And here, the big thing we dealt with was the fact that one of my neighbors that was building their house up above, his contractor didn't put in adequate silt fence. And silt fence is going to keep, a lot of that mud from washing through everything. And of course, this was right after I had put down some native grass and wildflower seed. So this year, his contractor actually came up and just a few weeks ago kind of cleared all the silt out of the bottom of the ditch, and then I had the gentleman come out and drill seed everything. And I installed silt fence at the north and south terminus of the property to prevent a lot of washout and rutting and things like that. So some of these areas that you're going to see, it's kind of hard to tell from here, but we actually have a pretty deep and wide lot, and I'm going to be putting up some bluebird boxes and things like that. Bluebirds are around the area. I've seen them around, and I want to try and get them established as well. So this is Patsy. Patsy's my little black German short hair pointer. So then coming around, you're going to see some of the other things I have going on here. I've got a few hydrangeas that I planted. I'm going to transplant some of them. I just bought a couple brand new ones, and then I'm going to be putting in some hosta as well. These are all knockout roses that are in front of the house, in front of the porch. And then you'll see down here some of the similar type of situation I have on the back of the lot. All of this area will eventually be native grass and wildflower. Far less upkeep. It's going to be full of pollinators for bees and other little critters that are going to help my vegetable garden. This is a little redbud tree that's just starting to leaf out right here. Love redbuds, grew up with them on my mom and dad's property. And then coming over to the garden, which you've kind of seen before. So we'll talk about this here for a minute. Right here is going to be my sweet corn patch. And then I have a couple of raised beds. The two raised beds you see, one of them, the one on the left, is full of rhubarb and asparagus. The right one is completely full of strawberries. And then if you can see here, what I've done is I brought in lots and lots of mulch. And I actually got this for free, believe it or not. There's a company that has the city contract here in Omaha that takes out trees that are encroaching on power lines, phone lines, things like that. And they will actually bring the mulch out to me for free because otherwise they have to pay to get rid of it. So I might be actually bringing in a little bit more. But the whole edge of the garden now and walkways and everything else is all this natural mulch. And it's a great organic type of mulch because it's not treated with any chemicals. This will break down over time and just essentially crowd out weeds. It'll become new soil over time. And then you'll see the vegetable garden itself. So I've already got my tomato stakes in. And you'll note that I have this black fabric, which is fantastic for weed control. Again, I grow organically. I don't use herbicides and pesticides in my garden. I'll show you some of the things I have for preventing pests. But this garden fabric, I'll put a link to this for Amazon, is wonderful in the sense that you plant your plants essentially in little cutouts of the fabric, and it keeps weeds down by 95% at a minimum. I spent the first year in this huge garden spending way more time than I needed to weeding things, and never again. This is my cucumber trellis. This side of the garden is where I plant a lot of my melons, pumpkins, things like that. And then you'll kind of see up here, I've got an area of black raspberries right here. This is a baby blueberry bush. And then I have red raspberries. And I actually have quite a few volunteer raspberries that are coming up outside of the mulch. Raspberries spread through rhizomes. They grow underground and spread runners. And so what I'm going to do is bring in a little bit more mulch to help crowd out some of these additional weeds that I'm already dealing with. And then I will be building a small trellis system as well for the raspberries that I will record for you as well out of simple T-posts and wire. It doesn't have to be expensive. You don't have to get fancy with some of this stuff. So then you can see where we started. This is the back embankment. And then I'll end it with a few other trees that we planted. We planted these the weekend after our daughter Claire was born last September. We have 2 sunset maples. That's one of them. This is a bur oak, which is native to Nebraska. We have some columbine that I planted last year that has come up really great, and 2 different colors. One's purple and the other one is pink. I hope you all enjoyed the tour of the property. Apologize again about the wind. It's one of those things with Nebraska. I will keep everybody updated on the projects as I continue to plant things and grow things, but either way, I'm going to go get dinner started. It's Mother's Day today again, as I mentioned, so for all you mothers out there, hope you are having a wonderful day. We're walking down to the garden. We're going to hopefully find a few spears of asparagus. Nice cool night, but we're heading down to the garden area, and you can kind of see what I've got going on here. But then here is my asparagus patch. So some of the purple stuff is popping up right now. You can kind of see some of the little spears that are popping out of the ground. I might take a couple of these right now, some of the purple ones to go with the green that I cut. There's another green one that's just coming out of the ground right now. Probably be ready here in a couple days. With the way that asparagus grows, it's not entirely uncommon for it to grow 3-4 inches in any given day. So, and I've actually seen more in some instances. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what I do to cut asparagus. It's a very simple process. Serrated knife is what I normally use. Just a quick slice, and that's it. There's your little spear. So we'll take one more here to go with the two green ones, and that will get added in with dinner tonight that I'm about to prepare. I'm going to cook with a little wine tonight, so you obviously got to make sure that it tastes okay. That'll work. So tonight we're going to have a little pasta dish with some shrimp, tomatoes, fresh asparagus from the garden. I have some tomatoes that I bought too many grape tomatoes for a pasta salad dish that I made last weekend, and definitely want to make sure that we're not wasting anything. So I'm going to chop these up and go into the pasta salad tonight. Going to finish it with a little butter at the end. Don't hate me for using Irish butter in an Italian dish, but this is one of my very favorite butters, so that's what's going into it. So I'm going to take a couple of spears of asparagus, like I said, that I got out of the garden. This one's a little bit fat, so we'll break that off there. But otherwise, I'm going to cut these into small little pieces, about an inch long, 3/4 of an inch long. Garlic. When you hit garlic, hit it with the flat edge of the blade and away from you. Tomatoes, I'm just going to slice them all in half. Alright, so we're going to start on medium heat with a little olive oil. And this dish comes together once you've gotten all of your stuff cut up really quickly. It's a shrimp dish. The shrimp only takes a couple minutes, and I'm making it with angel hair pasta. So angel hair pasta takes 3 to 4 minutes to cook. I will tell you that you want to probably put your pasta in right after you start sauteing the garlic along with the vegetables and the shrimp. And I'm going to put them in order: garlic, shrimp, then the vegetables right at the end, to keep that kind of al dente, and the tomatoes sort of prevent them from losing their consistency. I love these Rösle. It's a German brand of tongs that are basically inertia driven. So when you close them, when they're vertically, they stay closed. When you tip them down and squeeze, they'll open up. It's a pretty amazing little concept. Now in with the shrimp. I'm using these wild-caught Gulf shrimp. They're a 31 to 35 count. There's about a pound of them. There's 3 of us eating tonight, so this would be just about the right amount. I'm going to give it a little more heat. Okay, in with the asparagus. I'm going to put in a little bit of red pepper flakes for a little heat. Just a little bit of salt. I've salted the water for my pasta. There's salt in the butter. You don't want to over salt your dish. Pasta is about done. So I'm going to turn the heat off that. Okay, in with the tomatoes. And I'm going to put in about 2 to 4 tablespoons of butter at the end to bring that all together. You wonder how restaurants make stuff taste really good? It's normally butter. A little bit of white wine. Let that reduce for just a second. And just when you see the skin of the tomatoes start to lightly blister, that's when in goes the pasta. So then toss this together. Turn the heat down to simmer. In with the butter. And then just stir. Alright, incorporated the butter. Plate this up here. Simple dish, delicious angel hair pasta with tomatoes, shrimp, and fresh asparagus from the garden. Bon appetit. Another thing I wanted to mention is that these containers that you buy at the grocery store are good to save, actually, for those of us that garden. If you're growing more than you can eat, they're a great way to give it away to family and friends, and it's also a great way to store them. So.
Thanks for watching this episode of Subsistence in Suburbia. Make sure to hit that like button below and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes.